Namaste Saraswati. Charan. Welcome everybody to this week's Remembrance session. I hope you all had a wonderful Nishingadev Chaturdasi festival last week. So we're sort of carrying on this week on track in our usual fashion. And so it is my privilege and honor to introduce today's speaker, His Grace, Radha Mohan Prabhu. And actually, Radha Mohan, he's based at the manor. So I'm sure many of you will know him, but just in case, there are some who may be not so familiar. It's a little bit by way of background. Radha Mohan Prabhu came to ISKCON in 1992. So if my maths serves me correctly, that's roughly 3 decades ago. That's not to age him in any way, because he looks very, very fresh, young youth. So it's good to see that. And he's based at the manor since 1994 and received initiation in the year 2000. He's probably best known as our communications secretary for the manor. He's also, also equally, if not more, known for his roles in Bhaktivedanta Players. And I'm sure many of you have seen the manor plays, the Bhaktivedanta manor plays. The Nishingadev play, I think, was on all major appearance festivals, or all major festivals, actually. The Bhaktivedanta Players put on a wonderful show, actually. And if you haven't, if by way of, and I can't imagine that would be the case, if you have not come across one of these plays, they're all on YouTube. He runs his own YouTube channel as well. And that's about Vedic cosmology, right? Something I know absolutely nothing about. So I'm hoping maybe as part of this discussion, we will delve into that a little bit as well. And he sits on the board, consulting board of Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies. And am I also right in saying that you're a registrar for civil weddings at the manor?
Yes, I'm one of the manor's civic registrars for weddings, yes.
Okay. So if anybody's thinking of tying the knot anytime soon, here's your man, right? Please do get in touch. He does wonderful ceremonies, right? And a good way, an auspicious way to start your Grihastha life. So probably less of me now, and I'll hand over to Radha Mohan Prabhu. As usual, we have some time for questions at the end. So Prabhuji will speak for roughly 40-45 minutes. And but if you do have a burning question, which, a bit like me sometimes, can't wait or I'll forget if I leave it to the end, please do just, interject, put your hand up. That's not a problem. We won't stick to any sort of formal protocols here. We're all amongst friends. So yeah, please do ask questions if you do have any, and we'll save some time towards the end as well. I think, are you sitting at the manor? There's a wonderful picture behind you.
Yes, I'm actually at home, but this is a nice painting here that was gifted to me by the manor. It's one of my favorite paintings. You may not be able to see all of it, but it's Radha and Krishna, where she's Radha Rani is actually carrying the fruit, and is actually to Krishna's right in this, which is unusual.
Okay. Yes.
It's yes. So it's one of my favorite paintings. So I try to include it in the background there.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. All right. Without further ado, I'll hand over to yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. First of all, when Gaura Hari Prabhu asked me to say a few words this morning, I was both honoured and humbled. I'm honoured, obviously, because it's nice to be asked to say something, especially about exalted personalities, not least, of course, Guru Maharaj. But I was also humbled because I consider myself a lot less qualified than most of my god brothers and god sisters. and particularly in the last few years where of his life, of the last few years, where perhaps I didn't try to grab as much association as I should have. However, that's all part of our journey. That's all part of our own remembrances where we have, it's like a roller coaster. Sometimes we go through periods where we have had a lot of association of Guru Maharaj, particularly in the beginning, but then it goes through waves and phases where we are forced in some ways, I think, to take association in different forms, whether it's his lectures, whether it's his watching Abhay Charan, or of course his autobiography. And Guru Maharaj takes different forms. And the way I see it now, even though he's not with us physically, he's still with us. And it's only my lack of foresight, or our lack of foresight, if we think he's not with us. If we think he's not with us, and this is a lack of understanding of Guru Maharaj and what he's capable of. And of course, the same formula applies to, of course, Srila Prabhupada himself, who's present in his books. Guru Maharaj is also present in his lectures, in his music, in his teachings. And this is understanding because one's guru is not just a physical entity, but is a spiritual entity who is eternal and is always with us. However, of course, his Vapu form, his temporary visible form is no longer with us. And that brings challenges to everybody. And it's perfectly understandable, but I just wanted to pay tribute to all the devotees, not least, of course, Gaura Hari Prabhu, for putting together these type of sanghas like that. But I just also wanted to add a disclaimer. What I've done is I've made a list of certain main points, main incidents, let's say, over the past 20 odd years ago when I got initiated, first initiation, and where I have remembrances. And from that, obviously, other memories come out. And I just apologize if I've remembered anything which other devotees have remembered in a different way, or have a different understanding of Guru Maharaj on some details, because that's the wonderful thing, isn't it? Sometimes, you experience something and we have those takeaways. We go home from the event perhaps, and we've taken a gold nugget with us of what Guru Maharaj may have said, or what he did, or what he taught on the Vyasa-san. And obviously we can only give our own personal realizations to that. Ultimately, we all have our own personal angle. And of course, Guru Maharaj, despite, of course, all the things we all agree with, of course, we all agree with his character, his commitment to Srila Prabhupada and his mission, his gentle nature, and so forth. But at the same time, we all have our individual takeaways as well. So with great humility, I'll try and share a few memories which hopefully will in some way inspire the listeners this morning. Well, this morning in UK time anyway. I'll just start off with, for my own purification at least, I just want to start off with the invocation mantras, if I may. Om Agyanam Tirivam Dasya Giranjana Shlakaya Taksho Om Manitamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Garamayam Tadati Padantikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopi Kanta Radha Kanta Namoste Tata Kanchana Gaurangi Radhavindra Vanishvari Vishubhanu Sute Devi Panan Mami Hari Priye Vanta Kalpatarubhascha Kripu Simbudevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo 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 Vishnupadaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Charu Swami Nitinamine Snigna Cheta Supraneta Vagninam Sa Prasaputam Prabhupada Gata Prana Nami Bhakti Tarupadam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Pacharine Nivasesha Shunyavadi Prashachade Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Siva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you for allowing me to do that. Hopefully I've put myself in the right mindset to continue with your permission, Prabhu. So I will try to make this. This is not, of course, this is about Guru Maharaj, of course. It's not about us, and it's certainly not about me. But I have to begin from a personal perspective and make relevant trajectories. I remember back in the late 1990s, I was a brahmachari, of course, at Bhakti and as usual, we at a certain point we are encouraged actually, or to look towards Diksha Guru. Who will I take initiation from? And I guess being a brahmachari, there's a bit of a fast track kind of attitude, really, almost like a competition between devotees. I think Gaur Hari Prabhu, you know what I mean. There's that kind of, oh, which Guru Maharaj do you want and who you're aspiring for? And I have to admit, I hadn't made up my mind. It was something I didn't want to rush about. But then I think that the worm started to turn when they started to advertise or play early episodes of the Abhay Charan series. Particularly, I think it was the first 2 capsules, or capsule 1 to 3, I think it was. The one where obviously, you know, Prabhupada at that time was before he was born in that period. So, you know, some of the very early episodes of Abhay Charan as they came out. And I was watching this and I was seeing these characters of Tilak on and seeing Bhaktivinoda Thakur represented here. And I thought, who directed this? And then Shruti Prabhu told me, oh, this is Bhakti Charu Swami's project. I went, this a sannyasi is the film director. Wow, how cool can you get? This is amazing. Of course, it's practically unheard of. How can someone be so spiritual and yet be able to produce and direct television, a movie basically, and also not just the Abhay Charan project. There'd been other projects as well, but of course this was before YouTube and everything like that. So this was so I started to watch this and being an actor from an acting background, as some of you may already know, I thought I would love to do this. But and then so when Guru Maharaj started giving lectures at the manor, I of course was very interested. And it was almost as if every single question I had in my heart as a young devotee was answered by his presentations. I'm sure we've all had that, where sometimes we'd have a doubt in our heart, but by the end of his class, somehow or other, he'd ironed that out without even having to put your hand up to speak or to ask any specific questions. Somehow that connection grew. He was quite literally a spiritual connection, where it was almost as if he was able to read our hearts almost without having to speak physically, and he would just say something, and of course the purport or whatever it was, and then he would start speaking, and then after about 15 to 20 minutes of his class, suddenly he would start to talk about things that are directly relevant to your personal life at that time. And I think through that, that was when my devotion, my targeted, if you like, devotion towards Guru Maharaj rapidly began to develop. Abhay Charan project, of course, was the instigator, as I mentioned, but then in his own right, he was someone who was obviously a very highly elevated personality in many respects. And I don't need to repeat all of his qualities. That's one thing we already know, as I'm sure. But then of course, there was his albums. In those days, we still had cassette tapes, didn't we? So I had all these cassette tapes of Guru Maharaj's, talks from the early 90s, and it could still play them then. I think we've all thrown these things away now. Not the cassette tapes, but the cassette player. I've still got the cassette tapes, but I've got nothing to play them on, because now it's all on DVD and it's all online. But in those days, you have these nuggets, don't you? You have these things, and I thought it was all wonderful, and they all spoke to me in the same way. And I think his gentle nature was particularly attractive because I needed that gentleness, because being a brahmachari back to Manor at Janmashtami time, and these are wonderful, great opportunities for seva, but it can get very intense as well sometimes at the manor, with the crowding, with everything else, and the various pressures. But here was this wonderful, soft voice, that kind of that reassuring tone he always had, which to say, "Don't worry, it's okay. Krishna's with you. It's all right." And when I used to listen to his albums, I think it was 3 volumes altogether, if I remember, that sense of calm that Guru Maharaj was able to install within us, within a sometimes challenging circumstances. And I think that was it. And by this time I decided, I was almost certain that I wanted to take initiation from Guru Maharaj, of course. But one day out of the blue, on the morning I'd made that internal decision that this was the person that was going to connect me to ISKCON and to Prabhupada, and of course to the whole of ISKCON. And that's a very important part also of Guru Maharaj's mood. Not that we have this guru competition or anything like that, but this was the person who I felt could connect me to ISKCON, to connect us all to ISKCON for the rest of our lives, ultimately, to Prabhupada's ISKCON. But out of the blue, I think it was either Radha Prabhu or, of course, the late Harivamsa Prabhu, or one of these senior godmothers said, would you like to be an Abhay Charan? We're looking for a George Harrison. And my... So I thought, this is my Guru Maharaj. So, of course, before that process unfolded, I, of course, went on this wonderful roller coaster experience of course, playing George Harrison in the Abhay Charan series, mainly filled, of course, in either Wembley, at Bhakti Manor, in, I think it was Berry Place, various places on location. And having that experience of not just being spiritually guided by Guru Maharaj, but actually directed by Guru. And often when one is making, in fact, I've heard it being said, often when one is making a movie or a film, one has to use artistic license. But my experience was that Guru Maharaj wanted, at least the episodes I was aware of, wanted things to be as accurate as possible, to the point where he invited, of course, Shyam Sundar Prabhu, as in one of the original pioneers, he's one who used to be friend of George Harrison, to come and participate and help him direct the scenes that he was actually quite literally in. Because Guru Maharaj had no false ego. It wasn't about, oh, this is my thing. He wanted to involve his god brothers and his god sisters. And he could see that even though he had, let's say, a higher spiritual status, let's say, than some of his god brothers and god sisters, he had so much respect for those who are his contemporaries, his peers, and certainly his seniors, actually, like Shyama Sundar Prabhu and Mukunda Maharaj and Guru Das and so forth. And so he consulted them on the script and helped form a script based on that period. So he was someone who Guru Maharaj was obviously someone who was multi-talented, multifaceted, a peaceful sannyasi, a learned, of course, extremely learned, extremely devoted, and not only a film director, but someone who was producing as well. And these are the characteristics of someone who is superhuman. Actually, there's very few individuals on the planet that we'll ever see again who could do these things. And also, at the same time, filming with him, my experience was probably one of the best periods of my life. Not only did I get, of course, Guru Maharaj's association, but there's also where I got to know Shyam Sundar Prabhu and so forth. But one of the qualities I noticed when filming the Abhay Charan series was how he treated everybody, including what you call the professional actors or the guest non-devotee extras and other actors that were involved. I think Guru Maharaj did include as many devotees as he possibly could into the cast. But I think at other times, because he wanted the TV serial to be kind of accurate as well, sometimes, of course, he had to go out and bring in professional actors by, of course, giving devotees the first chance. And sometimes, but what was amazing was that some of the professional actors were obviously very quickly realized that Guru Maharaj was not a normal personality, that they saw devotees bowing to him. And this was an alien environment to the guest actors, some of these professionals that were brought in from agencies. And I remember one asking him, Swami, how come people are bowing down to you, mate? And Guru Maharaj very, very humbly just said, didn't say, you don't have to bow down to me, don't worry. It's just they believe they're not bowing down to me, they're just bowing down to the super soul that is within, and so on and so forth. Said, but please do not feel uncomfortable by this action. Please, you don't have to do that. Please take some vegetarian food, and this is very important, a very important quality, to be able to connect to non-devotees and make them ultimately into devotees, and make sure that all the caste, not just the devotee caste, but all the members, all are nicely fed, everyone is looked after, everyone feels involved, you know, whether it's the makeup team, whether it's the camera crew, whether it's the extras, whether it's the main actors, and absolutely remarkable experience, I have to say. I could go on and on and on, but I don't want to. I've got so many other things to say as well, so I didn't want to let that period. But I think at that time, that was in the middle of that film, and that's when I got initiated. So obviously a very important part. Other experiences of Guru Maharaj was in South Africa. We did what I think I'm not sure what we call it, but there was a special episode that never ended up being officially part of the Abhay Charan series. It was never designed to be. Some of you will know about this. There's stories about this. Some people say it was the lost tapes. Some people say it was tapes that were put aside for another time or were filmed with the Abhay Charan crew, but it had a different flavor as a standalone story. So I spent some time with Guru Maharaj in South Africa. I think Naveen Krishna, and I think it was Sandipan Muni Prabhu was also there, although forgive me if I've remembered it wrong, where again, very similar. I think that Guru Maharaj's ability to adapt to all circumstances was absolutely striking. And his ability to be able to float above time. And what I mean by that is that with filming and also with catching planes to different parts of South Africa or to Mauritius or wherever it was, back to India, wherever it was, because, you know, he put Abhay Charan first, and sometimes flights had to be cancelled or rescheduled. But the way that he took everything in his uttermost stride was absolutely striking, because I'm the kind of person who panics when it comes to traveling and flights and things like that, but he didn't seem to mind. There was a sense of being not trapped by time, or not pulled or not directed by time, that I think he had, because time, of course, color is a material thing. The spiritual time with Krishna, and there's material time, the time of the plane, the time of the flight. And he was able to, in his usual multifaceted way, being able to do so many things simultaneously. At the same time, once again, care for all the other actors and the guest actors as well. So again, I have to add at this point, I never saw the results of that particular episode. I heard recently that they'd been found and there was some editing going on, but I'd be interested to see the results of that. But again, to be able to spend some time with Guru Maharaj in that, I remember also this, by that time I was already initiated. So at this point I started to make mistakes. And, you know, where I think everybody has those things where I think at one point I went to, I think it was the Rondebosch Cape Town temple, where I got some Mangalati sweets for Guru Maharaj, and I made the mistake of passing them with my left hand instead of my right hand. Of course, that's, you know, these things happen, and I'm naturally left-handed, so it was just one of those things done in a panic. And that was my first minor chastisement, but it was soft. I don't think you should have given them with your left hand. So he was loving and soft about it. At the same time, underneath there was this sense of, you're not going to be doing that again. So without raising his voice or making you feel discouraged in Krishna consciousness, and you know, you could also argue it wasn't a major deal, but I've got other similar mistakes I made since then. But he was but he was able to adapt to different people, because when it came to the guest actors, the non-devotee, he was very, very liberal. He was very, very liberal and loving to them, and spent time talking to some of the more senior actors that were in that story. And of course, so this is actually a quality that Prabhupada, of course, himself had, which is time, place, and circumstance. How much can a disciple take? Or if someone is not a devotee, then just general pleasantries are absolutely appropriate. As you make a bit more advancement, more is expected from you, and your guru the role is to chastise and correct you. It's actually nectar, to be corrected by Guru Maharaj. But in a way that you never feel disconnected from him or put off. Or I remember a few incidents where, moving away now from South Africa, I remember there was a retreat. This is, I think, some of the early retreats before the big retreats that used to happen in Croatia or whatever. And it was in Buckland Hall in Wales. And I remember that I think me and a few other devotees, we put on a little play, but the play did not please Guru Maharaj. In my own puffed up attitude, I wasn't thinking about what would be good to see, but this will be funny, this will be a laugh, we can do this, we can do that. And we got carried, it was too frivolous. And I remember Guru Maharaj watching it, and then he walked out halfway through because it was too silly. It was a pantomime. It was not Krishna conscious enough. But just the very fact that he walked out was devastating enough. He didn't need to say anything, and he never spoken to me about that play. But that was a warning, you see. That was enough and he was too polite to actually say anything. But he's, they say people vote with their feet. And at that point, that was, and I think I remember writing an apology about that. Because it was to do, I can't remember the details of it. In fact, I don't want to remember the details. But here was a second type of chastisement. I remember once when in South Africa, we were staying in this big life member's house, and some of the houses that life members lived in South Africa are not, are big houses by UK standards. So maybe like 15 rooms and so forth, owned by one person, one wealthy life member. And there was one room with a piano in it. I remember once I was playing around with the piano, and Guru Maharaj, that was nice, So the next morning, again, my ego took off. So I started playing with the piano, this same tune over and over again. And I saw Guru Maharaj emerge, coming down the corridor towards the room, and I thought, maybe he's happy. He stuck his head in the door and he said, "I think you should be chanting your rounds, Radha." He said, I don't think you should be doing this anymore. In other words, what happened was that he made me feel very, very, very small. He put me in my place. And what happened was that as soon as one's ego starts to kind of manifest, Guru Maharaj was there to dispel the ego. It was almost as if he was able to read his disciples. Just as soon as his disciples are going above a certain mark, acting out of sync, somehow or other he was there. He was able to read us and to remind us of what we are. Why should I be playing the piano if I should be chanting my extra rounds? Exactly. And why should I be showing off about playing something silly on the piano? He was able to draw the line. There's another one. I hope people don't mind about these. I think they're quite fun. Where I was playing, it was Jamastami at Bhakti Manor, and I think I was playing a demon. I was playing a Banasura in a Krishna Leela play, and I was decked up like a real demon with a demon's hat and a demon's costume. And I'd wrote the play, so I had pride start to set in. And Guru Maharaj was at the front with Shruti Prabhu watching the play. And there's a big fight scene, of course, those who know the Leela, there's a big fight scene between Krishna and Banasura. And of course, Banasura gets killed. And I was Guru Maharaj, look at my... So Guru Maharaj after the play, came backstage to meet the cast of the play. And there I was, standing there 6'1" tall with my costume. And he just walked past me, and then he touched the feet of the actress that was playing Krishna. And then he carried on. And then I realized something. This was symbolic. I was expecting attention from Guru Maharaj. I was expecting praise for playing a demon. But what did Guru Maharaj do? He went straight to the child, the 8-year-old child that was playing Krishna. And he was telling me something. He was saying, don't be proud of these demon parts that you're playing. I'm still, whatever, I just want to see Krishna. And it also goes to show that especially I think in Indian culture, Vedic culture, where someone is playing a character, in one sense, when you're on the stage, you're non-different from that character. If you're playing a demon, you have to bring out the demoniac aspects of your own heart in order to play that character. And Guru Maharaj didn't want to see the demon inside me. He only wanted to praise and to give attention to the actors and actresses that were playing the devotees, or of course Krishna himself. So Guru Maharaj wasn't seeing things in a normal way, and he certainly wasn't seeing things that would feed my own ego. He was seeing things that would destroy my ego and to plug us into Krishna consciousness. I remember another pastime. I'll move on from these kind of negative things, if you like. But there's one more I think is important. We were in Villaggio di Hare Krishna near Milano in North Italy. And again, I think it was one of these early retreats before they got us a bit bigger by the noughties, I think. And I remember that Villaggio di Hare Krishna, you've got the temple, but you've got like a village as well of devotees, a devotee village, which is wonderful, actually. Anyway, one particular house, Radha Prabhu had sponsored pizza for everyone. And of course, we all kind of had big, nice pizza and things like that. And of course, Guru Maharaj came and we all had pizza. And it was wonderful, actually. But then Guru Maharaj afterwards, he said, and again, he put us in our place. He said, I don't think Prabhupada had 2 heart attacks on the Jaladuta, so we could sit here and have pizza. Oh my goodness me. This was a warning, you see, to us, which was that it's not about us, it's about Prabhupada's mission. It's all okay, devotee association is important, but we also have a mission. And this was something which I think Guru Maharaj actually used to remind us of almost constantly if we had the ears to hear, which is we're part of a mission, which is Prabhupada's mission. And that obviously each of us association, God Brothers and God Sisters association, of course, is important. But ultimately, we also have to understand what we're supposed to be doing, which is pleasing Srila Prabhupada. And that brings me on to, I would say, probably the theme of many, if not most, of Guru Maharaj's intimate classes, particularly with his disciples, from my experience. And I think for many years, he played on this emphasis, which you will all be familiar with. And this, of course, was keeping Prabhupada at the center of ISKCON. This was something which all of you will realize. He was saying, no matter what happens, we have to realize that Prabhupada is the center guru of ISKCON, that the Diksha Guru, his disciples and grand disciples, or whoever's playing the role of Diksha Guru, is a transparent via medium to Srila Prabhupada. And this is something which Guru Maharaj used to repeat many, many times. And those who've attended those classes will know exactly what I'm talking about. And I think this began, once in Radha Temple in Belgium, where, of course, it was on 17th of September, which, of course, we all know is Guru Maharaj's appearance day. And he turned it into a Prabhupada festival. And he also acknowledged the fact that there wasn't just his own disciples or aspiring disciples in Radha. There were local devotees, of course, devotees that come from across Europe with different Guru Maharajas who were aspiring for others as well. And as well as, of course, himself, and as well as young bhaktas and so forth. And he said, I don't want this to be about myself. I want this to be about Srila Prabhupada. Even to the point where there was initiations taking place, he wanted to invite everybody, but his main point over and over again was, we want a united ISKCON, and it cannot be united if everyone is following their own guru and not having respect for my God brothers and God sisters and other gurus as well. That ISKCON has to be united through the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, who Guru Maharaj would remind us, Prabhupada was Lord Chaitanya's general. He's not a normal, he is not just another Diksha Guru in the line of the Gaudiya line, actually. He was actually by personally sent to the West and around the world by Lord Chaitanya's general, as predicted. And if you all know, everyone who knows Guru Maharaj well will say, yes, Guru Maharaj used to speak about that all the time. For many, many years, he would say, look, yes, you're my disciples, but that does not mean you only associate or you only serve God brothers and God sisters. No, Prabhupada's mission, Prabhupada's family as one. And you don't, but with that basis, there's no need for us to go anywhere else outside of ISKCON. Even if your Guru Maharaj disappears or falls down, or you find someone that is more advanced outside of ISKCON, it's not necessarily because we've already got Prabhupada. And Guru Maharaj, and this is one of the things that I told him personally about why I wanted to be initiated by him back in the year 2000, because he was so Prabhupada-centered. He understood who Prabhupada was. He understood Prabhupada's position, who he was, the Acharya almost, if you like, of Lord Chaitanya's international mission. It was Prabhupada who brought this out, and connected to that, I do remember Guru Maharaj giving a lecture in 26 Second Avenue, of course, in New York City. Very symbolic place, because, of course, as we all know, this is where Prabhupada inaugurated ISKCON in 1966, I think it was. In 26 Second, a small storefront. It's basically quite narrow in the front and goes quite a way back. So it's like a narrow storefront. And of course, as part of the 1996 Prabhupada Centennial, ISKCON bought it back off whoever had it before at a very high price. But anyway, it was back into ISKCON's hands by then. And I think it was, I can't remember exactly when, but Guru Maharaj was there. We were there with the badminton players, and he was giving a lecture in 26 Second Avenue. And he said, but there wasn't that many, and Guru Maharaj was saying that this is a reminder of how humble Prabhupada's mission started. But from humble beginnings, look what happened. Look at the temples around the world. Over 600 ISKCON temples around the world, so many thousands of disciples from different gurus and so forth. Starting from just giving his disciples just for bits of apple, that's all he could afford, from abject poverty to the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, by which we recognize today. And this was Guru Maharaj's theme, but he said he also used the opportunity, though, because the turnout was quite low that day in 26 seconds. He said, why is not the New York Skimmerhorn Temple in Brooklyn, or why is this 26 second, why is it not packed full of devotees? We need to boost the Western preaching mission in the way that Prabhupada would have desired, especially back in those days. That Guru Maharaj was very, very, as we all know, was very, very committed and focused on Prabhupada's mission. And he was saying, yes, we need to broaden our horizons in the same way that Srila Prabhupada preached with an open mind and an open heart, of course, back in those days of the 26 Second Avenue. And I think this was connected to Guru Maharaj's mood and and about keeping Prabhupada's mission at the center, and Prabhupada as a personality at the center. I think this is very important for us. I think it's important. I wanted to share some memories of the opening of the Ujjain temple. Of course, that was a wonderful experience for many people. I just want to share one or two realizations from that period. I was helping to make kind of an opening. I think it was a small mini documentary on the opening, covering the opening of the Ujjain temple, with devotees and the devotee camera crew. I think some of them were probably the same camera people that had worked on the Abhay Charan series. So there was an obvious connection there. We did the voiceover and scripting all about the ISKCON in Ujjain, and connecting it, of course, to the history of Ujjain itself, being a place where Sandipani Muni would teach Krishna and Balaram. And this is, so I got a tour, I think, of some senior godbrothers, including Guru Maharaj himself, of the temple. Actually, at the time, the temple hadn't been opened. We were staying in a smaller place, about 10 minutes walk in Ujjain from the temple. But what struck me about this period was Guru Maharaj's fervent, strong desire to make everybody across ISKCON realize that this is not his temple. This is Prabhupada's temple. This is ISKCON's temple. Anyone of any guru or non-guru or whatever is welcome to ISKCON in Ujjain. And during the opening ceremonies, that I think took us several days, he said, please include in the documentary, please include my godbrothers and god sisters in this. Please make them feel welcome, make them feel involved, serve them, including, I remember, Ambarish Prabhu, of course, who just come over from Mayapur for the opening. And I mean, and how Guru Maharaj treated some of these, I mean, we all know, we've all seen Indian construction workers in India who are extremely talented individuals. I remember seeing somebody carving one of the columns in the Ujjain temple, and he was quite an elderly man. He had a beard, and he was, without any scaffolding, he'd climbed up this pillar. He was chipping away, and he was about 8 foot from the ground, chipping away, and his legs were wrapped around this pillar. And I mean, we only in India, right? Only in India can people do that. And this person was working for probably, I don't know, a very small. He was doing it. He was saturated with bhakti, and it was probably working for next to nothing, I imagine. But I remember Guru Maharaj was taking us, as a group of us, we were having a tour of the temple under construction, and Guru Maharaj, the first thing he did was he saw this worker up there, and he called them all down. He said, "Make sure they get prasad, please, please." And he sat with them, and he took prasadam with them, because he could see they were building Krishna's temple, Prabhupada's temple, his temple. And I think that was a very wonderful experience, I think. And these little nuggets of experiences, I think, stay with us, don't they? I think an interesting, if my memory serves me correctly, I think it was Rani Mukherjee that was there for the opening of the Ujjain temple. Of course, she was the most well-known person there, of course, and that, I think, the whole of Ujjain came to a standstill when she showed up, because obviously you got many devotees and, of course, non-devotees all coming to the temple, politicians and the local governor, and of course Rani Mukherjee had all this attention. But Guru Maharaj was also charmingly detached from that as well. Of course, she's an important person, a VIP, VVIP, but of course Maharaj, of course, being a sannyasi also, there's always that sense of, you could sense he respected Rani Mukherjee, who was a devotee in her own right. But of course, that sense, that excitement of having a Bollywood VIP in the temple was not so important to him, actually, than his own god brothers and god sisters, and his will to make sure that everyone felt included, that everyone was looked after from all the devotees from around the world. And again, so he was not somebody who was overclouded, let's say, by Bollywood. Although, of course, Rani Mukherjee is a wonderful devotee. I know I'm running out of time, but I've still got some leelas to go through, if I can rush through. How much time do I have left, Gaura Hari Prabhu? So I wanted to keep the schedule, you see.
I think, yeah, we're 1:15. So please pray continue. We will flex it a little bit, so by 12:40, so we have some time.
Okay, all right. Because I can still have more to say. I remember going on to retreats. Of course, there was some point when I think Guru Maharaj's retreats were, I can't remember the year actually, but they started to expand and become more concentrated. And it was very clear to everybody that Guru Maharaj wanted his retreats not just to be about a series of lectures, because that can happen in the temple or online, but actually these retreats were opportunities for something a bit more intimate, to enhance devotee association, and have that time when you're waking up in an environment, especially for grihasta devotees who were not living in the temple, as I was at the time, those who perhaps never, as they woken up, let's say, in like a temple environment, let's say at early hours of the morning, and be amongst god brothers and god sisters and well-wishers and devotees, and of course, obviously, Guru Maharaj. But he from the very beginning, from very early on, he wanted the retreat. I've always felt he always wanted the retreats to be special. That's something that was very dear to his heart, because he knew just turning up in the temple, giving Bhagavatam class, and then leaving was not enough for a lot of people. He really wanted devotees, especially householder devotees, I think, to spend their holiday time and make them into a spiritual holiday. And I remember the one in Malaga, where there's this whole entire hotel was devoted. Some of you may remember that. And he loved drama. Guru Maharaj obviously loved filming, but he also loved theatre. So the Bhakti players, we did about 9 or 10 different plays over, I think, a 5-day period in Malaga. And he was saying that, devotees have come all this way. It's hot, 35 degrees south of Spain in the summer, too hot for a lot of UK devotees. And I even remember, the makeup, theatre makeup, just melting on the spot. That's how hot it was. And Guru Maharaj knew. He said, we have to make sure people are comfortable. Yes, we can listen to me on the theme of Ramayana, I think it was, during that retreat. But we also need a break. We need some entertainment. So that's where the dramas came in. And again, that was wonderful. But I do remember a little misdemeanor. There was, on top of the hotel, there was this open air swimming pool. And after, it was very, very hot. And most of the members of the Bhakti players were like between the ages of 19 and 22. And I don't know how old I was at the time, maybe 30 or something. But I must confess, I say may, so I'm leaving because I know this has been recorded. I may have missed a couple of his lectures and may have gone to the swimming pool. Yeah, because it was very hot and we'd just come out doing a drama. But the funny thing was, word got out. Someone was a grass. Someone actually told Guru Maharaj, some of the devotees have gone to the swimming pool and didn't attend your lecture on Ramayana or something like that. And I was terrified about what his response would be. But Guru Maharaj was, I won't say surprisingly, because we all know he's very soft and very lovely, but it was let's say it was a bit of a relief that Guru Maharaj said, it's all right, they are young, it's hot, let them enjoy. And I thought that, but they've got to come to the lectures tomorrow, And in that way, I was sitting at the front of the rest of the lectures, but not because of being chastised, but because of being loved. Because Guru Maharaj understood that Krishna consciousness is all about love, and that correction and realignment and getting back on track or focusing on hearing Krishna Katha is based. It should be voluntary, and it should be done with love, that people should naturally in their hearts want to come. But also Guru Maharaj's understanding that if you've got someone who's a bit younger, to give them a bit of space, especially some of the Bhakti players. Some of them were kind of like Gurukulis, who went to the Bhakti Manor school. They have a kind of, I say this with respect, to have sometimes their own way of doing things, let's say. And Maharaj, he loved them all, and they felt loved, and I think that's very important. Coming into more recent times, or when I say recent, in the last 10 years, I think. I remember it was ISKCON's 50th anniversary, which I believe was in 2016, that period. So Shruti Prabhu, Gauri Prabhu, and to some degree myself and Sri Radha Raman Prabhu, we organised Guru Maharaj to give a lecture at the House of Lords. This is, of course, in the House of the Parliament, in the one section of the House of Parliament is owned by the House of Lords. So Guru Maharaj, there was a program there, and Guru Maharaj went there. And what was lovely is that Guru Maharaj had a choice. The problem was the program started at 6 o'clock, which meant that it was rush hour traffic on the road. And so Shruti Prabhu gave Guru Maharaj a choice: London Tube to get to Westminster, central London, or by car. Of course, there was plenty of people who were willing to drive Guru Maharaj by car from Watford to central London. And Guru Maharaj said, I want to go on the train with everybody else. I don't want to have a lift. I don't want to be a chauffeur-driven, limousine or anything like that. I want to go by the train with everybody else. When he found out that most of the attendees would go by train, he wanted to come with us on the train. And so we all, of course, because at some points it was quite crowded. And Guru Maharaj, of course, being transcendental, and in many ways, I suppose you could say above and beyond spiritually everybody else on the train, and yet was with them, sitting patiently on the Northern line, I think, or the Jubilee line, actually, with Shruti Prabhu and Prana Prabhu and everybody else. It was wonderful to see. I felt guilty. Guru Maharaj should not be on the train. He should be, in a Rolls Royce or something. But he, by his own choice, he wanted to join us on the train. Oh, I know this. I'll go with everybody else. And I had the service. I gave myself. I bought him a ticket, of course. He didn't have an Oyster card, of course. I had the service of buying his all-day travel card, and I actually put it in the slot for him, so the doors would open at the various checkpoints. And at one point, Guru Maharaj, he said, "I can do that. I can do my own." I said, "Guru Maharaj, it's not difficult to carry your card, but I just want to render some service." And he laughed. He said, "If you must, you know." But anyway, when we got to the House of Lords, obviously you go for security and everything. But there was again a surprisingly low turnout. There was some, I think that we were expecting MPs and Lords to turn up, but because of some other issue that had come up, I think it was, I can't remember what it was. There was a bit of a low parliamentary turnout because of some other Iraq or something like that, I think. And so Guru Maharaj was undetermined by the fact that this wonderful room called the River House room in the House of Lords, beautiful, beautiful historical room. But Guru Maharaj was unfazed. He just spoke about glorified Srila Prabhupada and his achievements in front of whoever was there, even though it was mainly devotees and one or two others. And so he didn't seem to be disappointed. He was just happy with who he met, I think, including Bob Blackman MP and one or two others that did make the effort to come. And he was just happy to converse with and infuse and to connect with ISKCON, those that did make the effort to come. I'm talking about, of course, the politicians here. And of course, I think, I have to say, I was relieved, actually. I think Kamlesh Krishna Prabhu or someone like that gave Guru Maharaj a lift back, so he didn't have to take the train on the way back. But nevertheless, it was a great pleasure to accompany him on the way there. Again, I've got a few of the things. I hope I'm not going on too long, Prabhu. Yeah, is this all right?
Yes, pause for if any devotees have any questions at this stage.
Yes, I have a few more leelas to share, but yeah, maybe a good time for some questions.
Yeah. Any questions for Radha Mohan Prabhu?
We can go back to the questions if need be, Prabhu, if there's none at the moment. In fact,
if I may myself, I'll take the liberty. Yeah. Okay, there's a couple of. So I just wanted to pick up on the missing tapes. I'm intrigued now.
Oh, no, don't, the missing tapes. Don't go there, Prabhu. Don't go.
I think we have Prabhu from South Africa, right? Who may be able to shed some light on the missing tapes, because I'm sure it's just too much.
Yeah.
Prabhu, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the missing tapes. Can I think you can unmute yourself, Prabhu. Where is he?
What we can do, Prabhu, we could return to this maybe in a few minutes if you're having difficulty right now.
Yeah. And of course, Radha Mohan Prabhu didn't just play demons, which he also played very transcendental Lord Chaitanya and the Guru Panim play, right? So, which I do recall. So it wasn't just demons. He also has very much a transcendental side to him, just to balance things out there.
But to be honest with you, I always felt like a demon when being with Guru Maharaj. Do you know what I mean by that? Because when you're with someone who's purer than yourself, or in the presence of someone who's purer than oneself, your own anatas, your own flies in the window, so to speak, your own dead flies that are lurking in the window, become more exposed. And I don't know if everyone else has had that experience where you feel unqualified. One feels sometimes, that Guru Maharaj could see right through you, so to speak. And I felt it. Yes, I played all devotees or demons I've played over the years. But the demon Leela, I think, if you want to call it, was the one that was probably the one that felt the most kind of poignant as far as being with Guru Maharaj is concerned. Maybe.
Sure. So,
So
okay.
maybe we can return to the missing tapes if you want to, but I just wanted to say that I do remember being I remember in Ujjain, of course. This was when, by this time, of course, the Ayurvedic center had been built and developed, of course. And many thanks, I think, to Radha Prabhu, Champlata Prabhu, and also I got, when I was there, association of Leela Purushottam Prabhu and other devotees. And I think the fact that Guru Maharaj supported this Ayurvedic clinic that was adjacent, of course, to the Ujjain temple tells you a lot. What it tells you about Guru Maharaj's support for the Ayurvedic hospital, actually, or clinic or retreat for devotees, it tells you that Guru Maharaj had that balance of vision between the spiritual and the physical. That this body, it is something we have to think about our health. We have to look after our health. We have to be conscious of what we eat, how we live our life, follow foods, have that balance, because these bodies are given to us to serve Krishna. We're not the bodies, but they are facilities to serve Krishna with. So Guru Maharaj was perfectly aware of the fact that we have this spiritual transcendental message, but also whilst we're living in this physical world, to engage in Ayurvedic principles, or even to the point of having an Ayurvedic clinic in Ujjain there, I think speaks a lot. It speaks volumes to that. So, of course, the running of the Ayurvedic clinic at that time, of course, also it's a good opportunity to pay tribute to those devotees that, of course, worked on that, set that up, and running it, and so forth. But I have to admit, I had a wonderful experience there. And when Guru Maharaj would pass through the Ujjain temple there, of course, he was always traveling and so forth. I was honored, actually, and privileged to be able to spend some time with him in his room there, because I suppose he knew that he wanted to give a bit of attention to foreign devotees, or devotees foreign to India, Western devotees, who perhaps needed that, because everything is in Hindi, you see, in Ujjain, generally. So Guru Maharaj, he kind of was very accommodating for the visiting, if you like, pilgrims from other parts of the world. And other devotees that have been to the Ayurvedic clinic have said, "Oh, Bhakti Charu Swami, he came and he spent some time with us," and so forth. And I think that's a very important quality. But it was also something as well which I wanted to share with you, which was, this was during the time, of course, when he was the chair of the GBC. I believe was the title, although I'm not exactly sure the exact title. But I was also conscious of the fact that it wasn't an easy post to have. It was it was a political role he had, and it was a difficult role he had as chair of the GBC, because when you're taking on those things, you get to see all of ISKCON, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, and the difficult decisions that have to be made as well about temples, about the political, the challenges in Mayapur, in Vrindavan, in New York, around the world. And he was, and I think Guru Maharaj, at the end of the day, he was a guru, he was a teacher, well, more than a guru, a Mahaguru and a teacher. But the politics, I think he wanted to serve Prabhupada in any way which, of course, the devotees wanted him to serve. But I think he felt that the challenges that ISKCON had was difficult for him. It was difficult. He didn't want to see devotees struggle, or whatever it might be. Of course he wouldn't. He wanted to be that. And I think he did say that not everything he told me not everything in ISKCON is perfect, but it's still Prabhupada's ISKCON, and that's the trick. Just like, for example, there is a child who perhaps makes mistakes. Children make mistakes. Of course they do. Children, they fall over, they graze their knees, they fall off their bike, they fight, they do silly things, but you still love the child. So you still love the child. So similarly, sometimes there may be difficult things to deal with in ISKCON, but you still love ISKCON because it's Prabhupada's ISKCON. And this was Guru Maharaj's thing. And his main thing was that we need to do more about Western preaching. This was very dear to Guru Maharaj because it was dear to Srila Prabhupada. So I just wanted to finish off a few final words from the main point of my presentation, and then Gauri Prabhu, you can, I guess, take over or chair the rest of it. Just a few final realizations following a few years, which I call the lost years, as far as I'm concerned, where I didn't get this, I didn't fight for his association in the same way I did when I was a bit younger. Perhaps that was because he was in the UK for a little bit less than he was previously, and some of the big retreats that he had were a bit too close to Janmashtami for me to have time off and things like that. But at the same time, his autobiography, of course, and of course his music and everything, and of course the archived Abhay Charan tapes, was a great comfort to me. I remember my wife and I reading his autobiography with great respect, and it was written so honestly, and it was so Prabhupada centered. It was so much. It was basically giving all credit to his, not just to Srila Prabhupada, but to the God brothers that introduced him to Srila Prabhupada as well. And his whole journey was so beautifully and honestly told and openly told, that I think that his book saw us through what I call the lost years. And I think also, just to finish off, to say that we have to realize extraordinary people like Guru Maharaj don't actually leave us if we have the right understanding. Now Guru Maharaj is gone, but in some ways, and in some subtle ways, I feel his presence more than ever before, because we cannot turn to his bafu. We cannot return to his physical body. We only have to turn to his spiritual body, if you like, or the body of his lectures, his teachings, his emphasis, what he spoke about, our memories, our nuggets, our experiences, and Abhay Charan and other kind of projects and the publications. And that is where Guru Maharaj resides. And so Guru Maharaj hasn't gone. He has not left. So those are my realizations. Thank you very much for listening and bearing with me. Those are just a few humble things I wanted to share today. And I'd like to pass it over now to Gauri Prabhu, perhaps to add and to facilitate.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. In particular, you mentioned very poignantly, it comes across that Guru Maharaj's association can be had in that legacy, right? All those individual from all those individual experiences to the lecture tapes, to the bhajans, to retreats. So thank you very much for that. We have one question from Vinod Mandri. I don't know if she's still online, but I think she asked, can you tell us how did Guru Maharaj guide you as playing George Harrison? So you played it so well. And I'm sure if many of you have seen those capsules, you probably would have thought it was George Harrison himself walking onto this.
I've put on a little bit of weight since then, actually, I hasten to add, because George Harrison was actually quite a thin person. And Guru, this is the one thing I realized from my experience. Everyone's got their own experience of Abhay Charan on and off the set. My personal experience was that maybe because it happened relatively recent in time, and that there were God brothers and God sisters that were physically there during the time when George Harrison, in the late 60s, early 70s, when George Harrison was most engaged with this kind of devotees, that Guru Maharaj, I felt, was going out of his way to do as much research as possible to make it as accurate as possible, even to the point of asking Sham Sundar Prabhu, what did George Harrison say when you said this, and scripting it on word for word. I mean, obviously there had to be some artistic license, bit of editing, but to make it as genuine as possible. And in that, I think it was Naveen Krishna Prabhu or some other devotee who, at Guru Maharaj's request, he actually wanted to see some film footage of the Beatles and listen to how they speak, because I myself have said, actually, Guru Maharaj, I can't just do this with a normal, it's got to be done with what I call a Scouser accent. And Guru Maharaj didn't actually know what I meant by a Scouser accent. Coming from India and things like that, you can't expect him to know about a Scouser accent. of course, it means talking a little bit like that, I'm going to be one of the Beatles. So this is how the Beatles would speak for a Liverpool accent. And I said, you cannot do the Beatles without asking the actors to do a Scouser accent. Even to the point where those devotees who were, I think in Mumbai, there were devotees who were, or professional actors that were translating into Hindi, speaking Hindi in a Scouser accent. Now that's something which I don't even want to imagine what that was like, because I have heard the Hindi version of Abhay Charan, as in when you hear it in Hindi, and it's kind of, I don't know if anyone can do that for me, speak Hindi with a Liverpool accent, but he did it. Guru Maharaj trained these actors doing the dubbing to actually make it that authentic, and yet it was in Hindi. But of course, I was doing it in English, and even to the point where Guru Maharaj was looking at photographs of John Lennon, George Harrison, and the others, Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney, looking at pictures of them and asking what we call the runners, which means members of the film crew that have to go and get bits and pieces together, going out to jumble sales, Oxfam, or even to whatever was around at the time, get me a scarf like this, get me a wig like that, to try and make the Beatles as accurate as possible, because they were well-known people and you can't get away with anything less, especially to those who knew the Beatles. And you've got to have the right kind of hair, the right moustache for the period. And what I would say, the personal direction I had from Guru Maharaj for the George Harrison was his will. I think he was working through Shyam Sundar, so he would find out from Shyam Sundar Prabhu about George Harrison, what it was like to meet him, what his demeanor was, and then Shyam Sundar and Guru Maharaj together would direct me, as well as, of course, as others involved that were in the makeup and so forth. And I'll tell you one thing. Guru Maharaj actually did notice, even then, even 20 years ago, I was slightly bigger than George Harrison was in terms of my build. My face, I got away with the wig. My overall build and my weight was still, even in those days, as a slim brahmachari, bigger than George Harrison. And Guru Maharaj actually asked me to fast for the part. And believe it or not, for the first and probably only time in my life I fasted. I had salads for a couple of weeks and no 9 o'clock Mahaprasad ghee with puris and fried food. So I actually did a fast just to lose weight for the part. So that was, I felt, but because he was dealing with well-known personalities, the Beatles, he really wanted to get it right. And yeah, so you can imagine that was quite ecstatic, actually.
Wow. Probably, well, you're saved from growing your hair, I guess.
Yeah. The character I played in South Africa was basically a bit different because it wasn't a well-known personality I was playing. And for that one, I was given, he wanted me to have my own angle on it. Sometimes actors are allowed to have their own interpretation of something. And with that one, it was more based on artistic license. That wasn't strictly part of the Abhay Charan series because Prabhupada was not in it. I think that the actor playing Prabhupada was Mr. Swayam Jalal, who's now the late Mr. Yeah. So he couldn't make it to South Africa, if memory serves me correctly. Although, again, forgive me if I got that wrong, but I don't remember him being there. So this was set apart from the rest of Abhay Charan. But nevertheless, from my point of view, it gave me a lot more association than ever of Guru Maharaj because we were staying in the same house for about 2 months. Yeah. So
okay. Thank you. I just want to open up if there's any other questions that devotees have. Please don't feel shy amongst friends, got family. Well, okay.
There's something in the chat. Is there something there? I don't know. Oh.
That was the question from Vinod Mandri about George Harrison. We might be letting you off easy. So
good.
It's wonderful, having your association, Prabhu. And just some pointers that came out to me, for me, yeah, you mentioned that Guru Maharaj links, disciples to ISKCON and Srila Prabhupada, and that was very much, so you mentioned that, and that was very much Guru Maharaj's mood. So thank you for, reminding us of that. And you say, as you said, it's very much about reinforcing any opportunity you've got, having this united ISKCON, right? And actually he would himself attend Bhagavatam classes of his god brothers and god sisters, right? And so that was, very much setting an example, himself. And I think one other thing that I had, yeah, and you mentioned also the opening of the Jain temple, right? In that opening, what you saw was Guru Maharaj actually took very much a backseat. Although, arguably you could say, he built the temple, etc. It's his temple, so to speak. But he very much took sort of backseat in everything, in the sort of installation of the deities, right? And he encouraged, he wanted his god brothers and god sisters to get more involved. And you also very eloquently described that as well. So thank you for that. And okay, so I think we'll leave it there then. And thank you once again, right, Radha and Prabhu, and thank you for all our listeners for attending this week. And we hope to have your association again next week. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you for listening, and of course, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. And if I've made any offences, or I've got anything that wasn't quite accurate, or I may have remembered it wrong or in the wrong sequence, then do forgive me for that. But the main thing is we just have to keep our memories with us and cherish them, and to help us in our spiritual journey.
Yes, thank you. On that note, thank you very much, Radha and Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.